Welcome to the Buckinghamshire Business First Talking Heads podcast. I'm Philippa Batting, the CEO of Buckinghamshire Business First, and today we have another exciting episode lined up for you. I'd like to introduce you to Bonnie May, who leads an amazing collection of businesses called the Global Infusion Group. This year they celebrate their 40th birthday. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi, Philippa. Thank you very much for asking me to join you this afternoon.
Can you talk about Global Infusion, what you do, where you're based, and the evolution of your business over the last 40 years?
Absolutely. So yes, Global Infusion, there's four parts to our company. Eat to the Beat, E2B Logistics, Gig Catering, and Bonnie May Food and Events. And we were born, as you said, some 40 years ago, and that was completely out of the music business. It was set up by my late husband in 1984. And for those first few years, exactly what I said, in the music business, and we sent armies of people all around the world to cater for those bands and artists and large festivals whilst they were out on the road. As time went on, and the music business was very different then, because they actually sold music, and unfortunately, now we don't. We download it all. But those were the days of the record companies and parties and record launches and things like that. So from being actually on tour with a band, backstage, as it were, behind the scenes, we then started to develop our skills and going front of house and doing the big lavish parties and events to the clients and guests and the hospitality side of the world. So within sort of 7 to 10 years or so, we weren't just behind the stage looking after the artists, we were actually in front of the stage, looking after guests as well. That soon developed from the music business into lots of other parts of our world, which we now very, very proudly cater for now. And that would be the corporate hospitality and the sporting world, which we'll cover off probably a little bit more later on. As that developed as well, we then realised that we had some great people, we cooked great food, we put on great events, and we had loads of equipment as well. So the private side, that kind of the lavish weddings and parties as well, started to develop. And you probably wouldn't ring Eat to the Beat or Gig Catering for those kind of events. And living in not far from where we are now in Aston Clinton, which is obviously a reasonably affluent area of the country, we then set up Bonnie May Food and Events, which was completely dedicated to looking after those clients as well. And then off the back of all of those companies, we have E2B Logistics, which basically, I guess, in a nutshell, is probably, we operate, for want of better words, like a mini Amazon warehouse here in Aston Clinton, looking after sort of 40 to 50 clients, B2B and B2C, and also looking after their event equipment as well. So all under this 83,000 square foot of fabulous new warehousing here. We're pretty busy.
Do you have any particular achievements that stand out for you over that 40-year period?
I think in terms of achievements, I think for us, and I know absolutely for Tony, was in 2014 when we got our first Queen's Award for international trade. I think, when we went on to collect another one in 2017 as well.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of kind of the pinnacle of my proudest moments, I probably think those two would be it.
And Bonnie's probably too modest to mention herself, but you were also a finalist this year in our Business Leader of the Year category in our business awards. And
I was.
you were previous to that, Global Infusion has been winner of the Company of the Year award and International Trader of the Year. And it is one of my career memories that when I called Tony and your team up onto the stage, I was getting married the day after the awards. And I don't know where my brain was, but I called you up as Global Confusion. And actually, it's taken a lot today to make sure that I keep saying Global Infusion.
I think there's probably times when we have been global confusion over the years, actually, but maybe I'd keep that to one side for now.
In terms of difficulties, Bonnie, what have been the sort of significant challenges for Global Infusion? So, I mean, you've traded through COVID. You've moved your business from Chesham to Symmetry Park there in Aston Clinton, over near Arla. What was that like, uprooting everything and consolidating those three businesses? Because it's a task that many businesses face as they grow and dread, you know.
It was, to be honest with you, it was a long dream of Tony's to have us all under one roof. I mean, life started for us in Watford, some sort of 30 years ago with one unit, then buying the unit next door, and sort of as we grew, sort of we were renting from this unit over here and somewhere else, and to
Yeah.
the point that we had like 9 units we were in spread across Watford. And that first consolidation period was us actually moving to Chesham, with the dream of putting us all under one roof in Chesham with an office block. And we had about 38,000 square foot there, which was great, but very short lived. I think we weren't even there 18 months when we were bursting at the seams again. And then we had to lease another unit back down in Watford again, another 60,000 square foot. So it was absolutely the dream to have us, or although we are quite different disciplines in terms of the business that we do, having
Mm.
us under one roof was the absolute dream. And when, as soon as Tony knew that we were going to be building, or you got the local council, we were building here with this development, he was, I
Yeah.
think we were actually one of the first units to sign up here in this amazing facility. So we did embrace it with absolute open arms and with an absolute, a dream to happen. I mean, the facility is incredible. But we did move in the December before COVID struck in the March. So timing wise, it couldn't have been any worse, to be honest with you. But the business changed shape a lot through COVID, just when we were all ordering and getting our home deliveries. So, there could be an argument to say we were quite busy fools during that period of time, but we were absolutely flat out here from a logistics point of view. And our the guys that bought our site in Chesham were super accommodating with us there, because we actually had industrial kitchens there, and we did look after sort of 15 of the sites for the Bucks Council during COVID, the NHS sites. So they actually allowed us to stay in our kitchens up until July in Chesham, even though we'd sold. So the dream of moving in here and how it was all meant to happen didn't happen at all in the guise that it was meant to. And even now, 4 or even actually 5 years down the line, as we will be in December, a lot of our aspirations and plans in terms of what we want to do from a build point of view here hasn't happened. But we've changed shape, we've kind of rethought, we've kind of, been probably more sensible with what we should and shouldn't do. And now, as I say, some 5 years on, it's been tough, but it's been a good tough for all the right reasons, now to be here today.
And what would you say to others was your main learning from that time? If you had it to do again, is there anything you'd do differently?
I think we probably would have got everybody in. We did lots of drawings off plan, and we had planned the building with an inch of its life, probably the best mark, was 6 months or even 12 months out. And it was a slightly different location for us, um, being here than where we've been previously. So I think, you know, talking to myself 5 years ago, knowing what we do now, I think just would have got ourselves in and probably not the most professional word at all, but maybe camped here a bit more for the first 6 months and really understood the sort of the lie of the land a bit more, rather than coming with a real hard and fast plan. You
Mm.
Clearly COVID had a massive impact on that for us, but I think to have got in and just, it's a bit like moving house, isn't it? Rather than doing all the decorating in the first week, I think we just probably, my advice would be to get in first and then make those big decisions, rather than, unless you've got to from a production point of view, you've got to do it months out. But I think that would be the biggest piece for us.
Of learning.
Yeah.
And generally, how do you think your industry is faring at the moment? So, any current trends in catering and events that you're seeing? Have
Um,
you seen big changes since COVID and Brexit?
I think that two quite different things for us. So, um, if I do Brexit first for us, is, I mean, they've both been toughies. But Brexit for us is a bit like going back to what we were doing, some 20 years ago. All of our equipment, we do a huge amount in Europe, which means two big pieces of work for us. One is that everything goes out now on a carnet, which means every single piece of equipment has to be scripted and documented, like an inventory for everything. And that is a huge piece of work. If you can imagine, for us taking kitchens on the road for, a 200, a, a kitchen for 200 people, even down to, crockery and cutlery and all, and the kitchen sink in a lot of cases. So that piece of work is a big piece of work. But the bit that's been more challenging for us from a Brexit point of view has been the Schengen visa piece, with the amount of days that people can work out the country. So we have everybody on a constant count of how many days they can work now, and even down to, asking guys not to go to certain places on holiday just because their days will all add up. So obviously only being able to do sort of 90 out of the last 180 days in Europe, for us, if it's a 3 or 4 month tour, that can be really, really difficult. And actually, in some cases, for people, means that they're not actually able to either complete that piece of work or go on to another project in Europe, and they've got to, you know, come back here in the UK and gather their, build their days back up again before they can go back out. So the Brexit's been a real challenge, and obviously, from a COVID point of view, again, it's been very difficult, different in terms of, I think, people's sort of attitude towards, food and sustainability, and probably waste has been the most, talked about, and in a positive way piece. The hospitality industry has long been known for its extravagance, in terms of, what's been seen to be done and the perception of things. And I think coming out the other side of COVID, I think that we probably stepped down a gear in terms of that lavishness of what food is available, and we changed our language quite a lot in terms of, more of the kind of waste not, want not type piece, and be seen to be as sustainable, I think, is probably the word
Yeah.
on everyone's lips. I know that, but
Yeah.
just, trying to play our part in a very, in an industry which is, you could argue, is not very sustainable, but really trying to wave up our flag as and when we get that opportunity.
Mm. And so you're also a company who has managed to pick up government or public sector um, contracts. So I presume the Olympic contracts are
Yeah.
within public procurement. Um, any useful insight that might help other businesses in that regard? Because what we hear at Buckinghamshire Business First is how difficult it is, A, to even get anywhere near those contracts, but
Yeah.
then fulfilling them and repeats.
I think in terms of, I think that one of the most is actually understand what you are going for. Those contracts, I mean, they're just, they massive documents in themselves to just even understand what the ask is, and what you actually do need to deliver. Most of the those contracts that we go for, there's very often a pre-qualifying, a PQQ, before the tender piece comes out, which basically asks all the right questions that can you actually deliver this? So that, we'll go through just, our finances, how robust as a business we are, all those compliance pieces that then are then submitted first. So actually, when the contract comes back to us and comes in the format of an RFP or an invitation to tender, we actually know that we already have got a tick that, we might not be the right price in the nicest possible way, but we are qualified to do that job. So I think it's really understanding that the nature of what that ask is, and also just kind of converting it into, it's all very well, some of these contracts say they have a financial value of a million or 2 million or more in some of these cases, which sounds really attractive. But we are really good at almost triaging some of those pieces to actually, that's great when we've got there, but what's it going to cost to get us there? And that tender piece can often be a huge cost of actually, of the actual project itself. Site visits, the travel piece, before you actually get to deliver it, that pre-planning piece is absolutely enormous. So I think we're really good at doing our maths and dividing, and not just looking at the prize once we get there, but just that financial journey we have to go on to get ourselves there.
To get there.
So
Yeah.
there are, for all the ones we have done, there are also plenty that we have done that kind of exercise and almost audited it, and actually said no to, because we, think in some cases the cost to put the tender together in the first place, can be just ginormous. And we hear that even with host cities, who have gone for Olympics and either, won't go as far as that final bid or pull out along the journey, because that initial piece you've got to front and you want to portray yourself in that absolutely best way possible. But that does come at a cost. So I think the financial journey is probably the piece that, yes, that's great to see that big number at the end, but what do I need to do to get there?
Yeah, what cost does it come at? And
Yeah.
you're now so those Queen's Awards for exporting and international trade. You are a significant service exporter. I mean, when I read your newsletters, USA in the summer, the Paralympics, Paris, and whatever. What tips would you give to somebody listening now, thinking of expanding a service business overseas? How have you expanded your international reach?
So I think the sort of circus that we work in, it is, and I mean that most respectively, is that it is a circus of people who do go from games to games to games and do. So there's a whole world out there that does do these huge events globally all of the time. So obviously, from a relationship point of view, a lot of the opportunities that we get are with clients that we already have, we're tried and tested. So there is obviously that relationship piece, which has really bode well for us over many years. Um, and I think the other piece for us is understanding obviously the territories that we're going to be working within, and the difference in compliances, even from a health and safety point of view. What we might do here in Aston Clinton, is actually quite different than we might have to deliver if we are in Moscow, for example, or in Shanghai, or in any other of these territories. So one of the things that has really boded well for us is actually looking at working with a ground partner. So rather than taking a whole international pool of all of us out to one of these new territories, is actually working with the DIT, the Department of International Trade, who are nothing but super supportive of us. The minute we know we're going to a new territory, we jump on the phone and we want to know who at the embassy is representing us and who will support us wholeheartedly, which we did in Paris. I've just only recently been talking to the amazingly helpful lady in Milan, as we hope to go out there, in a year in February. And just getting a ground partner, somebody out there another caterer who probably has loads of great staff. They've got a procurement chain out there. The chances are they've got their premises. And
Mm.
what we would then do is we would then almost audit what they've got as a real anchor piece for us to deliver in that new territory, and then almost fill in the gaps and bring a skill set over that practically buddies up with them. And the good thing about that, particularly for when some of these global games happen, is that we're actually then spending the money in said country, and we're also leaving talent and skills behind as a legacy piece as well. So I think it's great being able to go into a country and do your big project and disappear again. But for us, it's all about living a legacy there. Why go to all that huge effort, particularly in our case, to train people? We could be there for months and months and months, and then you leave this amazing workforce behind that you've just got to, who can deliver. And then we would then maintain a relationship with those guys afterwards. And in some cases, we'll take them on to the next big project. We actually have what we call our legacy crew, of which we've gathered them over the last, I think we've even got people from Doha when we did the Asian Games 2006 who were in Paris with us. We take those superstars with us on that journey, rather than just helicopter a team in and then disappear again afterwards.
Sounds amazing. Um, so there are lots and lots of young people out there, Bonnie, who are confused about how they make their way into any sector, quite frankly. But your personal journey into the industry, how did you get started? What was your career path leading you to where you are now? Do you have any advice or tips for aspiring young people looking to enter the catering and events industry?
Well, my journey, and I have to say, I'm forever grateful there was no social media at that point. I think probably for most of my friends and colleagues, I think we're very grateful that that came along later in life. So my journey, I've always loved hospitality and catering. As a family, my folks were super hospitable. We were always the ones to entertain at home. And you know, when I was able to work from the age of 14, worked in sort of the local pubs and local restaurants. And when it came to 18, I, much to my dad's disbelief, changed my mind at very last minute about going to university. And without, what are you going to do? Um, and in the local pub I was working in, some of our regulars came in and said they'd been on a skiing holiday and they'd seen and they'd had been in a chalet, and there was a chalet girl, and it was like, Bonnie, that's got your name written all over it. So that was the Sunday lunchtime, and I had an interview on the Wednesday and flew out to Verbier in Switzerland the following Saturday because some poor girl had broken her leg. So it all happened, and I was thrust into the industry and absolutely loved it. And then from my skiing season, I then went to Turkey to be a biller girl as a summer season, and one of the girls there worked for this company called Eat to the Beat. When I was 19, and when we're all like, what we're going to do at the end of the summer, and she said, come and meet these guys, they're amazing. So I came back, met Tony, and I was, you know, when I was 19, so 36 years ago, and I guess the rest, as they say, is history.
The rest
But
is history.
absolutely fell in love with all parts of it. You know, the traveling piece, you know, doing amazing concerts and shows. It was a whole world that I never even knew about. You know, I didn't even know that caterers went on tour. I didn't even know that was a thing. And as you know, the business grew, and you know, my role in the business grew as well, and then been privileged to work on, you know, which I guess can only be argued some of the biggest events in the world.
Mm. Fundamentally, you were brave. You know, that is such a characteristic. Well, yeah, and for and that is for young people. Be brave. You know, take a step forward. You don't always know what the final destination will be.
Absolutely.
You know, a bit like yourself, this was never my life plan to end up where I am. But you just get taken down the road and follow the forks. Future plans for Global Infusion, Bonnie. We talked a little bit about the importance of sustainability and realizing that's going to play a part. Um, so what are you thinking in that regard? And are there any initiatives that Global Infusion are thinking about to promote the fact that you are environmentally responsible?
Yeah, and it's again, like I said before, you know, the hospitality and events world is not, you could argue, very sustainable. So it is a really difficult one. I mean, aspirations, you know, in the next 12 to 18 months to travel down the B Corp journey. But that will be a project of its own. But what we're doing right now in terms of our communication is just more than anything, just trying to be really consistent with our communication across the projects that we're on, and just and communicate what we're doing, because what we have aspirations to do and what we want to do, sometimes the actual project or the event itself is not able to even support that. You know, something as simple as being in the middle of a field somewhere and setting up a big event, you know, it's simple as doing all your recycling rubbish. You know, it sounds like a really simple thing, and we do it at home, but it does not the facility behind the scenes, you know, and these things come at a cost as well. You know, if it all goes into a big skip afterwards, we're kind of snookered from the outset. So what we've tried to do, we have a little catchphrase, so we call it sustain able, and we very much use the sort of ABLE, the last letters, in terms of what we believe we strive to deliver. So that is the ability to do so, brave enough to do some of these things, leaders in our field of it, and trying to be as ethical as we possibly can. So that's our theme we have within what we do and how we communicate that on the projects that we're on. And the few things that we do, that we hope has an impact on, if not the whole project, but certainly the individuals who might pass through that project for the day. So one of the things that we do is we have a 60/40 menu, one of the menu items, that basically what we're saying is don't not have that spaghetti bolognese if that was on the menu. Do have it, but what we're going to do is, rather than use 100% meat in it, we're going to use 60% of a much better quality, either organic or ethically sourced meat, and then we put 40% of pulses and vegetables. So what we're trying to do is encourage people to just try and bridge that gap. We're
Yeah.
not saying go plant, but just give it a try, give it a go.
Yeah.
One of the other things we do is something that we call nudging, which basically is, so on a menu ordinarily, if you go out for dinner somewhere, you usually would read a menu from top to bottom, and it would probably start with sort of red meat or white meat, then fish and vegetarian and vegan in that order. So the chances are, if you're not vegetarian and vegan, you might even get that far down the menu. Your choices are made at the stop. So what we do on nearly all of our menus now is we actually flip that round. So we start our menus with the vegan option, then the vegetarian, then the fish, then the white meat, then the red meat. So you've really got to read through all of this before you might get to what possibly is your first choice. But we're just trying to kind of, put it out there that there are other options as well, and encourage people to have, even if you don't want a whole portion of something, have a little try, have half a portion of something. So that very much is in our vocabulary of what we're trying to do. And also, where possible, we endeavour to do what we call a 10-mile menu, which is, depending where we are in the world and here over here in the UK, is that if we can generate 80% of one menu item within 10 miles of wherever we are geographically, to either to promote a local producer or just to get that kind of vocabulary going, that okay, you're here at an event and having it, you actually could try and do this at home as well. So just there's a few pieces that we consistently do where possible, and it's really, really well received. And we've also got what we call as our dirty dozen, which is actually 15 items. In fact, it's just some of those products, like kiwi fruit and avocados. And my main gripe, is that we're all being encouraged to have smashed avocados on toast,
Yeah.
versus an egg and bacon sandwich from the local farm shop. But actually, is that really the most sustainable choice? That, unfortunately or fortunately, whichever your take is on it, is it's not. So it's about, for us, more about educating people on that sustainable journey, and maybe just taking some snippets they might be able to take home and give that a go as well.
Totally agree. It's the thinking differently, isn't it? And
Yeah.
trying to do it. Because what we've found is if you aim for perfection, paralysis sets in really quickly, and people lose their momentum. It's
Yeah.
the small changes that will actually get embedded and take you towards the final destination. Um, both BBF and Global Infusion are disability confident employers committed to
Yep.
being disability confident. And you have very kindly hosted BBF when we've been trying to spread the word. Bonnie, do you feel that your organisation has benefited from being disability confident?
I think it's benefited. I don't know whether it's necessarily benefited the business as such. I don't think, if you were to do, cruel, hard and fast facts, have we won any business through it? The answer's probably no. But what it has had, which has been a really positive impact, is just making everyone else in the business just aware that, there's a whole world of amazing people out there, whatever their disability, or as we call it, ability. And just making it really clear that we welcome, or whoever you are within our business, and
Mm,
we will support people as much as they possibly can, depending on what they require along their journey with us.
yeah.
So it's I think the awareness piece has been a really big piece. We have a great wellness team here within the business, which is we rotate. It's always 4 people who host something every month, and ability and disability and neurodiverse and all of this is always top of the agenda. And I think now they're words within the business we're not scared to say out loud, or we're not scared to challenge or embrace um, at all, and being super fortunate with that. It was the jewel in the crown for us in Paris, to be able to say that we delivered all the catering for the Paralympics was, for us, an absolute honour and a privilege. And I think that's been born out of us, taking the challenge on here and changing our language here within the business as well.
Yeah. And it's about being brave to step into an arena where you're not the expert and you might not know everything, but be prepared to think differently about things. And yeah, I think it's been hugely advantageous for BBF as well. I can't quite believe we've come to the end of our allocated time, Bonnie. But
Hours.
I could talk to you for ages. Yours is an amazing story and one that will inspire many, I'm sure. Thank you so much for your time today and all the insights and hints and tips. I'm sure we'll speak again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.